Let's just move this bad boy on over here, shall we? All right, let's just hope that this thing is actually recording under the right microphone again this time. Okay. All right. Well, welcome back to Top Tier Career with your host, Sir Chad Upper Brochures, or we can just say Chad Upper Brochures. All right. Today's episode is going to be on my humble beginnings, if you will, and how many companies that I've actually started, how many times that I've failed, or at least the moments of failure that have occurred that have made a difference. So this is not my first business venture. Top Tier Career is the next. It's the evolution of my business, uh, and or what these channels stand for, what the channel stands for. So I am now. I'm gonna adjust this a little bit. You got a whole lot of my chest and a whole lot of my head here. There we go. All right. So I have. This is my fourth company that I'm currently working inside of. I am a consultant. I specialize with gyms, and what I do is I just go in and I will completely, pretty much, I flip gyms, if you will. I flip them for profit. Now I make them profitable, not necessarily flip like the real estate concepts where you buy a property, you do some things to it, and you turn around and sell it for a higher amount than what you initially invested and or what you did to renovate or remodel. Uh, it's not quite like that. I go in, find out what the company actually is, specifically, like it is a general fitness, is it a boutique, what type of business structure is it when it comes to these businesses as gyms or fitness facilities, if you will. So I'm not limited to for profit. I can do nonprofit. I've consulted with multiple gyms at this point, and currently not as a big brag, but more of um, a, let's say a tipping of the hat to systems and how systems work. Now, I'm not specifically a overly gifted individual in any way. By the way, let's create a distinction on this: gifted versus developed. Gifted is more of kind of a preset ability that you may have latent in you, but it just something about your particular makeup that makes you more successful in a particular place and or style actually, I'm sorry. Uh, you just have a specific set of traits that actually make you more capable in a certain way than other people, and that would be the gifted values. That's typically it's innate, or it's within our genetics and our particular development. So, on the other side, developed is, and that's more my category. It's just how often you how much time you spend on developing yourself, and by what means are you developing yourself so that you can have a better output when it comes to specific challenge tasks or jobs, if you will, whatever it might be. I'm in that category. I'm the developed side, not the gifted side. Now, some people may argue that, but they also weren't with me during my studies. They weren't with me during my hardships necessarily. So there is a pretty big difference between the two, but ultimately, it's really the outcome is still the benefit of what we need to focus on. So you don't need to be gifted in order to be successful. So I want to dispel that concept because some of us have that kind of creeping around in the back of our heads that you need to be you know, gifted in order to be successful. Uh, Accusation, and this is a comparable accusation that I get, and I use this as an example, is I am regularly accused of being incredibly intelligent. Now, I appreciate the compliment, I do. I value intelligence greatly, but I don't look at myself that way. I don't consider myself to be highly intelligent. I consider myself to be highly interested. I'm very, very curious about things. So I have a set skill set that was developed at a very early age to always be curious to why things work and how they work and what other things can be done as far as variables can be adjusted in order to accomplish something. So that is a big aspect or trait that I have is curiosity. So benefit of understanding that I have a high degree of curiosity helps me work with the issues that some people have when it comes to the concepts of intelligence. Some people feel that if they don't have an innate skill set of intelligence or just genetically gifted to be intelligent, they typically assign that to another group of people and they don't really pursue the same um, paths that I have, or even similar paths that were laid out before me through curiosity. Now, and we all have the ability to be highly curious about things. That's what I would rather focus on, and how I would rather direct people, than to put me behind some sort of veil of, some sort of superiority or something nonsensical. But I don't feel that way at all. So I would like to use that as a way of giving somebody an idea between developed and gifted. It is a lot of many, many, many hours throughout my life that were dedicated to curiosity, dedicated to development. I do like telling people, and I enjoy this because it does seem to leave people fairly shocked whenever I give my full sincerity on it, which is typically every time I say it. I have not been bored since 2014. Not 1 second have I been bored since 2014. It was a chosen direction for me. I decided not to be bored ever again. And how I've managed that declaration has been the simplicity of I'm always curious, always looking into something else that, if I find that there's something that I'm not very familiar with or don't really understand, I will pursue better understandings of that thing, whatever it might be. The moment that I decided this, actually, I was working for a power company, and this is during my working in the corporate world thing, 2014. I was there for 1 year, reestablishing myself financially because of the venture that I had from my third business. I'm sorry, my second business. And it did leave me financially. You know, I took a big financial hit on that venture. So I was sitting at the power company. I was working in the operations portion of the department, which is how basically the whole place runs. And they use these people that are in the operations department to make sure things are running properly, make sure the machines are, maintained properly, but they don't do the maintenance. They just, they'll do lubrication, stuff like that. But that's for the maintenance department to do the maintenance. So anyway, a little bit extra detail, not necessary, but still to throw it out there, spice, if you will, for the conversation. So I was sitting and I had to watch this particular panel that had certain things on those O2 sensors, mercury levels, things like that, because I was at a refuge to energy, which is a trash burner, is what they refer to it as in the power industry. So as I sat there, they were trying to monitor the mercury levels that was inside of the boiler, and there's sensors there for it. So I was at the panel that actually has the sensor readings. So I'd have to report every so often if the buzzer went off or the light went off or an alarm of any type went off. I'd have to report the alarm, reset it, and then journal it or mark it down. And it's a very tedious task, and more attuned to boredom, because you're really sitting there for hours, and you may have 2 or 3 occurrences where you actually are required to do something, but takes you a total of 2 minutes to complete all 3 of those, alarm settings and reporting that to the control room. So most people would find themselves bored. And I initially, at that moment, said to myself, I'm starting to feel bored. And you're not allowed to read, you're not allowed to play with your phone, you're not allowed to do anything other than sit and wait for the alarm to go off, reset the alarm as you report it to the control room, and journal it. That's it. That's all you're allowed to do. If they catch you doing anything in addition to that, if you walk away from your station without relief or anything whatsoever, you would be in trouble. So I sat and I thought for a while about different things. And then I realized that it was my decision whether or not I was going to be bored or use this time to be constructive for my outcome, long-term outcome in my development, and decided I was going to go that route. So I looked at a, um, I looked at a pole that was in front of me, and it was a yellow pole. It was a metal one that was really there for traffic guidance to make sure that there was, if a vehicle lost control or went the wrong direction, whatever, it was intended to stop the vehicle from hitting this panel. And there was 3 of them there. And I thought to myself, what exactly is that pole made of? I know it's metal, but where was the metal sourced? There's paint. How exactly does paint adhere to metal? And started to go through the molecular bonds, things like that, and really try to think of everything that I had known at the time, and then realized what I didn't know, and started categorizing things that I wanted to learn, because it was insufficient information about what my curiosity was. That was it. I have not had boredom since. It does not matter if I'm sitting by myself for hours on end or even days on end. This has happened since then. It doesn't matter. I will always find something to learn and develop myself in and be curious about. That's just the way that I am now. So no boredom since 2014. I'm almost 10 years at this now. And it is a decision that I made. So now that I have that out of the way, or at least have given something as far as a basis for that, we'll go back to my first business. Well, technically, this is my fifth business, and I'll tell you why. The first business was when I was in seventh grade. Uh, it was back in the 90s, early 90s, and there was when the fanny packs first came out. So my mother had a red leather fanny pack. I was in class one day, and I loved Big Red chewing gum out of my pocket. Thing about Big Red though is as soon as you take that thing out of your pocket, even before you take the wrapper off of it, you can smell the cinnamon. It's so strong. Well, I'm in school. I'm in class. I take this out. I'm bored. Well, I'm not really bored, but I'm not necessarily fully engaged. But I did want this nice, refreshing, spicy cinnamon, chewing stick, chewing gum. So I took it out, put a piece in my mouth, put the wrapper back in my pocket with the pack of gum, and then immediately, if somebody that I was familiar with, kind of friends, but not necessarily full blown friends, to my right goes, "Hey, Chad, can I get a piece of gum?" And I thought to myself, well, it's a big pack, but it's not full, and I don't really, okay, one piece won't hurt. Okay, fine, here you go. I gave him a piece of gum. Next thing I know, the kid to my left, a little less familiar, but still kind of categorized in that world of, closer than acquaintance, but not quite a friend kind of thing. And he goes, "Hey, Chad," he goes, "Hey, can I get a piece of gum too?" And I'm like, man, this sucks. Every time I would take this pack of gum out, it would be like a signal, an aroma that went through the room, and it left people with, wow, I want a piece of Big Red. So I I ran out of gum. By the end of the day, I was riding home. I had one piece in my pack, and and the first time this happened, I do recall somebody on the bus. As soon as I took the gum out, they saw it, not necessarily smelled it, but they saw it, and they go, "Hey, Chad, can I get a piece?" And I'm like, "I don't have any more. This is the last piece." They go, "Well, have the stick with me." And I was conflict avoidant, more driven to be, relatable and to connect with people and be funny and whatever. And not really one to say, no, this is my last piece. I'm sorry. No, so I halved it and I gave them half and I kept the other half, chewed it. Well, um, this happened a couple of times, but I realized that there was an opportunity in front of me. So I had $1 and there was a gas station. It's called Deschamps. It was at a third of a mile away from my house, maybe half a mile away from my house, possibly a little bit more, but not too much. We walked it regularly as children. And it's out in the country, it's rural Florida. And we walked to the gas station. I walked with my brothers to the gas station. And here I go in, I've got this dollar and it's a few pennies in my pocket, I think. Or actually, no, I just had $1. That's it. And I went and we were there, and my brothers were getting what they wanted, and I look over at the big old candy racks, and as soon as you walk in, there's a wall of nothing but candy, and I mean it's like three of those placekeeping standings shelves, and like wide, and it's a pretty decent distance, probably about 10 to 12 feet long, and then top to bottom is nothing but candies and all kinds of assorted, like chewing gums and just kids, stuff that little things like that, Tic Tacs, whatnot, chocolates, whatever, candy bars. So I'm looking around and I got $1. There's Big Red, and I can buy a pack of that. But I'm like, I don't really want to do that this time. I like Big Red, but they keep getting wiped out when I'm at school. And so I don't really want to do that this time. And I get down and I'm kind of panning all the candy and all of that. And I get down to the very bottom right of the middle um, stand shelves. And there is this gum that's very, it's the commercial available gum. It's all over the darn place. It's twisted together and it's like white, yellow, and blue. I'm sorry, red, yellow, and blue. And it just says bubblegum on it. And it's underneath it on the price was 1 cent. And I thought to myself, that can't be right. It's a penny. So I look over at the attendant and I said to the attendant, "Is that a penny? Is that right? One piece is a penny?" And he goes, "Yep." I was like, "Ooh, I'm gonna do 99 of them." So I get 99. I count them all out, and I pay him $1, got a penny back. Grab another piece, gave it to him, because if I had $1, then it was gonna be $1.07. So gave it to him, and then I got 100 pieces of chewing gum. So I go home and I tell my mom I've got my little bag of chewing gum. And I told my mom, I'm like, hey, mom, I asked her if I could use that fanny pack that she had gotten. And I said, I know it's not really the color I want to, wear around school because it's a, bright red it's rich, deep, but bright red fanny pack. Really stood out. Very effeminate. So I got this fanny pack. I loaded it up I put 50 pieces of gum in it. And I went to school. I had some change that I had too, because I know that no, I didn't have any of that. It was just the chewing gum in the back and the fanny pack. And I go to school, and I'm just waiting this time. Now, mind you, I do have a Big Red with me. Excuse me 1 second. So I do have some Big Red with me, and I realized what I was going to do is I was going to use that, because that's what I always got hit on. Everybody's always asking me for Big Red. So I get, as soon as I'm sitting in this class, and this is the same class that I had mentioned earlier, and I'm sitting in it, and I take out the Big Red, unwrap it, put it in my mouth, and I'm like, yeah, all right, here it comes. And sure enough, the first one to ask me is the kid to the right of me again, same as last time. And I go, well, I really don't have a whole lot of Big Red, but I do have this other chewing gum. Now it's 10 cents each. And they go, what? You're going to charge me? I'm like, unfortunately, I have to. My parents are not going to buy me candy or gum anymore. I've got to figure out how I'm going to get it. So, best that I can do is I can sell you a piece of this chewing gum for 10 cents. Now, not to sound like a Pawn Star here or something here, wasn't like that. But I'm like, okay, well, I got it. Let's go. So he goes, all right, well, I only have $1. And I'm like, well, I can give you 10 pieces, and then, or you can give me $1 and I'll hold on to 9 more. It's up to you, but you'll have them. You'll have them with me whenever you're ready, or I'll give you all 10 right now. And he goes, oh, all right, okay, I'll do that. So I gave him the 10 pieces of chewing gum, gave me $1. Like, not doing bad, I've got a nice return on my investment here. The other kid goes, hey, you selling gum? And I'm like, yeah, I can't give it away anymore. And he goes, well, that's messed up, man. And I'm like, I'm sorry, dude. That's all I can do. I was like, but if you want a piece of gum, it's 10 cents each. And he goes, well, I got a quarter. And I was like, well, unfortunately, I don't have change for that. But what I can do is I'll give you 2 pieces, and then I've got, credit on half. Whenever you got another quarter or whatever, I'll give you 3. Whatever works for you, you tell me, but I'll give you 2 pieces now, and then you'll have a 5-cent credit because I didn't have any change for that. So he's like, all right, gave him 2 pieces, and we, I honored the agreement later on. He gave me like $1 and something. And I matched up and did exactly what I was supposed to do, and I honored my part. So this really, it started taking off like crazy. Within a week, I was already well over my initial investment, significantly over my initial investment. So my father would take us to Sam's Club. It's a wholesale club. Most people have those around them, but anyway, it's a very large membership-based wholesale company club. You go in and buy a bunch of stuff in bulk. So we went to Sam's Club. Now my father was a bit frugal, so if I wanted something, sure, I'd come up and ask him, but his answer was almost always no. Nearly 99.9% of the time, no. So I go up to him. My dad, he's got the cart. Actually, we go in. He's got the cart pushing around. We get to the candy aisle. I go over and I grab this big old thing of Now-A-Laters, and then I get this thing of blow pops, and I get a thing of big thing of gum, and a couple of the strip packs of 25-cent. It's like 5 pieces of Big Red, and then a spearmint and something else. So I go in. I put all this stuff into the cart, or on the cart, and my dad goes, "You need to take that off the cart right now." And I said, well, why? Said, well, because I'm not paying for that. I said, I'm not asking you to pay for it, Dad. I'm going to pay for it myself. And he goes, with what money? And I go, oh, I got money. You want me to give you cash, or do you want me to do it at the register? And he goes, where the heck did you get money from? And I said, well, this is what I've been doing, Dad. And he's like, oh, okay, smart. And that was it. And I gave him the money for it. He paid for it, whatever. And since I was on his membership, I gave him a little bit more than what the actual stuff cost, because that's good business. Even though it's my father, I'm not going to treat him like he owes me something. So anyway, that blossomed. I ran this particular company for about a month. I want to say it's like 3 weeks to a month. It's been a little while, but I got to the point that by the way, mind you, I had no idea what franchising was back then at all. I had no idea. I had been to franchises, but I didn't know that. I didn't understand the business structures, anything like that, like McDonald's, stuff like that, right? I didn't know what those meant. But I did have two people, not the same kids in class. One of them was one of the kids in class. The other one was another one. The one that was in the kid in the class was the one to the right of me. And then there was another kid that I knew. And they both were like, Chad, we want to do what you're doing. You know, you're making good money. You've always got candy on you. And I was like, all right, well, we got a couple ways we can do this. I could either buy you the fanny packs and you guys just pay me at the end of the day and I'll give you a percentage of that money. Or you can buy the stuff from me in bulk at a discount from its original or from its retail. It's up to you, but you're going to have to buy your own fanny pack, but I'll get you the other stuff and I'll teach you how to do this. And they were like, oh, this is a great idea. Well, here's where a nice little reality smack came in. That same timeline, it's not the same day, but I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do this. And I'm like, okay, I'm basically coming up with how I'm going to finalize the first efforts and doing this next step, which is really it's franchising. Just figuring out which model I wanted to go by. But again, I didn't know that. I was figuring it out. Demand was in the marketplace. As I'm sitting in that same class that I was in, whenever the idea came to me, and then the same class was the first time that I actually had made a profit off of this, which is the first transaction. I had first two transactions that was actually profitable at that point, but it made significant profit based off of exchange for it. I was sitting in class and the assistant principal knocked, opened the door, said hi to the teacher, and said, "Hey, I've got to get Chad brochures real quick. We got to, the principal wants to speak with him." And I'm sitting there like, huh, what do you want to talk to me for? And I'm a fairly good kid. I'm typically not doing the wrong thing, stuff like that. And I'm like, okay. So I go to the principal's office with the assistant. I'm thinking nothing's wrong. Maybe it's an honor thing or something, whatever, which I was not academically gifted either. So what the whole honor thing would be was just, me being optimistic and kind of driven, thinking that I was special or something. I was young. What can I say? So I get into the principal's office and the assistant leaves. I sit down and the principal, he goes, "Well, I hear you got quite an enterprise going on here." I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I didn't know what that really meant either. I mean, seventh grade, yeah, kind of had an idea what he was alluding to, but I really wasn't certain. You got quite an enterprise going here. So you can't do what you've been doing anymore. And I'm like, what do you mean? What have I been doing that I can't do anymore? And he goes, "Chad, you can't sell candy at school." I'm like, wait, what? Immediately I was like, why? You guys have vending machines with soda and candy and all the rest of that stuff here. Why can't I? Well, those people have agreements with us and we need you to focus on your academics while you're here. You can't focus on doing this thing. You can't focus on, selling candy. We need you to focus on your schoolwork. And I thought, oh, I was doing something wrong. I was unaware. But I immediately had positioned a business conversation argument with the principal without realizing it. Because again, I was so young, but I did see the immediate comparison. There's a vending machine that's got sodas and all kinds of stuff and candy and whatnot, and chewing gum that's included. But I was competing with their business, and it wasn't really the school's business necessarily. I believe they get a percentage depending on the agreement the vending machine company has. Now, as an adult, I can understand that. It just depends on their agreement. But I didn't know that then. But it was a pat on the back for myself because I immediately made that comparison. So when I got home, my father was like, "So I heard from the school today." And I said, "Well, yeah." And he said, "Well, you can't sell candy at school, son. We need you to focus on getting your education." Now, I agreed to no longer do it. I told the other two boys that I wasn't able to do it, and they'd get in trouble if they did the same thing because I had to shut down business, basically. So it was just fascinating to see that was actually my first business. Now, it failed not because it wasn't capable of making money. It failed because it wasn't in the right space with the right contracts. It was not under the right opportunities. The opportunity was there. It wasn't the right place or time to do such a thing. I could have come up with other ways before or after school, meet kids as soon as they get off the bus, whatever. I didn't think to do all that. It was more of listen to the authorities and do what they say. So I shut down business. First one was actually a profitable option. The second one after that, and there's no repeating, by the way, that was it. That was a chapter I closed at that time, and I had not reconvened with selling candy out of a fanny pack. But, it was my first business. Second business was one that I filed with the state SunBiz, Florida SunBiz, and also I had set it up with the county. Now, it was a handyman company that I had worked with a childhood friend of mine. His name is Paul, and we named the company Men at Work, and it was actually available. So we filed with the state, with the IRS, and then also with the county. Um, well, we tried doing business. We were both working at the power company at the time. I worked for 10 years in the power industry, so it was from 20 until I was 29, almost 30. And then I went back again for another year, so a little bit over a year. So I did about 11 years in the power industry. So here's what happens. We're working night shift. We're making pretty good money. For our age, is really good money. We were both mechanic apprentices. We were both, working the night shift and doing what we had to do and making better than, well above what our peers were making. But we were both ambitious, and we both had the ability to work on things. Worked on cars, worked on vacuum cleaners, worked on all kinds of things. And we had to work around the house to help our parents, do side jobs or whatever. And so we had these skill sets. Well, my father, well, not my father, we learned some interesting lessons. And this is actually whenever the Palm Pilot first came out, which is also an interesting thing. So the Palm Pilot came out, and I'm like, cool, I'm going to get technology involved. So I went and I bought a Palm Pilot from Kmart back then, before they pretty much closed the whole damn place down. But that was back in the 90s. Kmart was pretty damn big, and Walmart wasn't quite the size it is now, but it was the most available place. So I went to Kmart, got this thing. So I tried using that to track material, things like that, because we needed to track our material costs, our labor costs, things like that. And I wanted to have something in the field that's not quite a notepad, but something else that I can try to use to move us forward into technology. And though I had a pickup, he had a pickup, so we both had trucks. We did a couple of jobs. We did pressure washings. I had bought some pressure washers, industrial pressure washers, by the way. Back then it was like $500 they were used. We got them from a pawn shop, actually. My father bought them, and I had to pay him back. He bought 3, and I took 2. And I think the total was like $700 and something, but they were really big, strong pressure washers. They were very large, and they were industrial use pressure washers. So we used those. We also did a fence job, or at least we were working on doing a fence job, and learned that you really do want to get, a deposit for the material. You want to get a contract to do the work. You want to get things actually in writing so that you're not, throwing away money and your time. We're learning these things, as I didn't know that at the time. So I bought a bunch of fence posts. They were pressure treated, all of this, and we were going to do this guy's yard. And so we went over to her place. Went over to her place, and we both, unloaded all the material, all of that. And then we were going to get more material. We had to get the fencing itself as well. But we were paying for it ourselves, but we were expecting her to pay us back. Well, we learned in the hard way that really sucked, because she stopped answering the phone after we dropped. We never reconnected with this person. We had our material. We made several errors. We eventually did close the business. It was especially after the lessons like that were pretty hard. We lost pretty good. It was a couple $100 worth of money that, it doesn't sound like much now, but it actually was pretty big back then. We worked hard for every penny we made. Then we were trying to really move along, not realizing we were also doing another business that you have a specific amount of money that you can make for an amount of time that you're there. Very restricted to that in the economy, because you can't charge a significant amount of money if you don't have the skills or the artistic talent that somebody would pay above market value for something. So we eventually closed that business. Interestingly enough, there was actually a warrant issued for myself and for my partner, because we also did not know that the county or the city, it's the county taxes and things, they wanted their money for what business that we did, and since we didn't file anything, they did an assumption of income. So they said, okay, well, if they did very little, this is how much they would actually do. And they gave us a number. Well, they had sent somebody out to serve this warrant to where I used to live. So they gave the paperwork and told me when I was supposed to be wherever and all of this. So I'm working at the time in the power company still, but I went to Crystal River, which is a nuclear facility, and I was in the process of getting a regular position with them instead of a temporary position, which is what we had been for years prior. And they needed to have my driver's license and my birth certificate and things like that. So whenever I called because I needed to get a document replaced, and I forgot which one it was. And they told me, well, sir, your license is suspended. Like, what? My driver's license is suspended. Why is it? Why is that? And they said, well, it looks like you have taxes that you owe that you never paid. I'm like, well, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. So I call up the proper department, and they told me that, yeah, actually, you do have taxes here, and it looks like what they did is suspended your license. And I'm like, well, how can I get my license reinstated? What do I need to do? And they told me, well, you need to pay X amount of money. And it comes out to like, I want to say it was $72 or $74, something like that. I think it was 74. And it came out to a total of like $37 each is what we owed them, So because we had this business and what they assessed the taxes for the income that we would have made, but we didn't report anything. So they just came up with some generic formula. So I had to go to the tax collectors and pay that year's tax money. And then they reinstated my license, all of that. But it was a hell of a lesson to learn. There was quite a few lessons to get out of that one. That was a big smack in the face in several ways, especially for the age. But we were trying. We were really working on that. And that was back whenever I was, 23, I want to say, 22. So, and then my next business venture after that was in insurance. So I worked as an insurance agent. I finished the state exam with a score of like 93, which is insanely high compared to the average, which I was surprised because I would say 99 is high, right? Well, yeah, that's extraordinary, and that would raise flags. If you got a 99 on a test, they would wonder why. It's not an easy test. It's not hard. I just studied pretty hard on it. But anyway, so I got this, and I went to work in the insurance industry for a year. I had to be my own business entity. Nope, I'm sorry. The insurance was the second real business, or the second filed with the IRS business. The first one in 7th grade obviously wasn't filed with anybody. It was just me doing something and running it. The second one was actually whenever I left the power company in 2009 and started my own. I started working with a company, but I had to have my own company in it. So it's a 1099, and so it was with a company that is a personal training company. It's advanced personal training, and it was working inside of a physical therapy office. So I left, the security of the power industry. I elected to leave. It was voluntary. I did not get fired. I didn't just outright quit. There was a couple of locations that were being recommissioned, and they didn't need as many personnel. So being a union, they moved people along to wherever they preferred to go, as long as they had seniority over somebody else, and then they would move whoever had less seniority to another place where they had more seniority. So that's how it worked. And when they told me that there were people coming to my particular plant, I decided that I didn't want to do it anymore anyway. I looked around me. I realized everyone seemed miserable. The only things that ever made them smile really was whenever they got their paycheck after overtime, or when they were looking at their stocks and investments and things like that. But that was about it. Nearly none of them had quality relationships with their family. They just seemed miserable people, but I could tell they were not always that way. It was the industry, it was their careers that made them miserable. I talked to other people, and they used to be so happy, talking to other people, because they all worked together for decades. And like, yeah, they used to be a real happy person. Used to throw parties, would get invited. They don't do it anymore, and they're on their third marriage or whatever, right? Most of them were not on their first marriage. It was more than the first, second or third. Nearly none of them had anything great to say about their own kids, stuff like that. It's just like this miserable existence. I'm like, well, that's not something that I want for myself. I don't want that for me. I don't want that for the future. So I elected to take a it was a severance package, and then I went to work at the physical therapy office inside of the advanced personal training company, which is under a gentleman. His name's Eric, a phenomenal guy, great mentor. Learned a lot of lessons there. I worked in that for 3.5 years. From that, I actually had my first repo. It was a voluntary repo. I gave the truck that I had bought when I worked in the power company back, and had to take that hit and work my way out of it, but still learned a hell of valuable lessons. I learned how the personal training industry worked from a boutique working inside of a physical therapy office. I learned how to be a corrective exercise specialist, which is a certification that I did. I got to become a corrective exercise specialist because of my time in the physical therapy office, as well as my time studying under the Paul Chek and the Chek Institute. So what that is it's basically a very high level personal trainer. Performance, all the rest of that stuff's easy. Preventing injuries and or doing corrective exercises to help reduce the likelihood of an injury is significantly rewarding. So that's what I had done for 3.5 years. I worked as a 1099 with the company, so I had to run my own. I did Actually, every single year I had to file loss. I was not able to show profit with the IRS because I really didn't do as well as I wanted to, because I was still a young business owner and I didn't really understand everything necessary to be successful in that business. So I was learning. Then I left that and I continued with my own 1099, my own company, which was Brochures Business Solutions. Why I went with that term, I'm not really sure, but it makes sense now. But back then, it really didn't make all that much sense yet. I had an idea that I wanted to work with businesses, but I had no idea really how I was going to do it, but I was optimistic. Now I understand because I'm a consultant. That's actually what I do. But it was Brochures Business Solutions. So after I left the physical therapy office after 3.5 years, I still went for another 2 before I went to work for the power company for the year that I was there. So it was 2014 into 2015, about halfway through the year roughly. Whenever I got there and when I left, it was almost exactly a year. It was a little over. So I ended up, I went through the starving artist phase. My education, excuse me, my education went through the roof while I was there. In that company, I read, incessantly. I took all kinds of certifications. I was as I am now passionate about information and knowledge. I was incredibly passionate about learning how the body worked from a holistic perspective and the corrective background that I had. So it was fascinating. Problem was, and the things that I learned there, is that you can easily distance yourself from your client base simply because you are following your higher level of education, but your customers are nowhere near capable of understanding what you're saying. You just sound really smart, but it's not that valuable to them. As the old saying goes, most people don't care about how much you know, they care about how much you care. I demonstrated that I cared, but I didn't use a language that we could connect. So I was not able to really draw in that many people. And the more desperate I got, because the less money I made and the more I had to struggle, the harder things seemed to be, and the harder I tried to double down on the science side of it, which really became a challenge. But I wasn't aware of it. I am now, because it was a hard lesson to learn, but it was a great lesson to learn. Make sure that you're relatable to your customer. No, and I wasn't, but I thought I was. Actually, I had one of my clients, and I actually did land her as a client. I loved this person. She was awesome. I would get there as early as I could. We did our sessions. We had great conversations, at least so I thought, until one day, and this is months after we started working together, she stops me in the middle of talking about infant crawl patterns and how they relate to adult movement patterns and how to reprogram some of these issues that you may have based off of that infant style movement as a neurological reset and or reconditioning. But it's fascinating. But anyway, I was going over it with her, and she stops me and she goes, Chad, I love that you're so passionate about this and that you are so into the science and that you study so often. It's very admirable, but I don't care. And man, was that a heartbreak. I just said, oh, it took the wind out of me, literally. I'm like, oh my God. First thoughts I had was, I've gone on about all kinds of things science related for a long time. And I was like, how much did I abuse my client by not realizing that that was not an area of their interest or her interest? And how many of my clients have I affected like this? And how do I overcome this? And I've got to be responsible for it. So I'm like, well, I want to apologize. And I was like, I wasn't aware that you didn't really care. And she goes, look, she goes, I love that you love it. I don't care. She goes, I'll talk to you about anything. But the last thing I want to talk to you about is science. Like, oh God, what a chest pain, right? Just like, oh, how can that be true? So I learned you need to connect, right? Um, Eventually I did end up closing that business because of, still it's the starving artist phase, man. I learned so much, but I sank myself financially. So I went back to the power company, worked there for a little over a year, stabilized myself financially. And then I went to work for another company, which, by the way, I'd already worked at multiple gyms prior to that because of, negotiating contracts, things like that. To work out of the facility to train my clients. I had multiple clients. I used, to try to negotiate rates and stuff, all kinds of fun stuff whenever you go to negotiate as a personal trainer with clubs and companies that, had independent trainers in it. So it was great learning lessons in that. So then I went to work for a large box gym, but they allowed me to start putting my own system in training and development, my own staff, because I really do not like the way the industry teaches them. And the certifications they may be expensive, they may be very elaborate and all of that, but ultimately when it comes down to it, prevention and correction are a base level that I have a higher level of appreciation for than performance. Performance, great, I can do performance without a problem, that's not it. It's the preventative and longevity, which is what I had to do in the physical therapy office. Was I had to look into causation of injury, one that was post therapy. So whenever they were done with the doctor, I would look into what caused their injuries in the first place, not the incident, pulled the lawnmower cable, whatever it is, bent over at the mailbox and blew out your back, whatever, or you got into a minor car accident, but all of a sudden you have lifelong injuries. I had to find out the majority of those were actually preset issues that were done through muscle imbalances and they were not addressed. So that instant, whenever something happened, it had the imbalance cause that injury, but they don't blame it on the imbalance. So anyway, there was a lot of investigations that I needed to do, and why I did not like box gym personal training. I felt that it was turnstile. It was very undesirable. So I was given permission to develop my staff the way that I prefer to do it, which is the holistic model and using my systems that I'd already have come up with on how to work better. I was given the task of hiring people without teaching me exactly how they wanted me to hire people. So I had to figure it out on my own because the company was not established that much just yet, but it was a big company. It was over 130 clubs, but they did not have a protocol for hiring people. They just said, leave it up to the people to hire who they want. So as long as you can pass a criminal background and that kind of thing, because they still did that, but they do that for you. I didn't have to do it, but they didn't really tell me much else. So I learned a bit there too. I had to come up with a new interviewing style because I was hiring people and they were washing out, and I didn't like that, and I needed something better. So I came up with my own interviewing systems, which I do offer, it's in my book that will be published very soon. That is under Top Tier Career um, training departments, entrepreneur training departments. Excuse me. So learned a lot there. They made me Mr. Fix-It. They'd send me to clubs and fix them. They sent me to quite a few in my time with the company. First ones that I cut my teeth on was one that they usually used to punish people, basically. It was the joke. It's like, if you get assigned to that club as their director, personal training director, you've made some mistakes. That was the first one. My district manager is like, you know what? This is yours. It's your baby. Make it work. Fix it. So I did just that. Didn't know if I was doing a good job or not, really. I knew I was putting up new personal training agreements, that kind of thing. And, I was trying to get a handle on my staff that I acquired from me taking that role, not people that I hired myself. And I had to start training, developing them. So I more than doubled that location, and I did it. I was assigned that club in November, and I was gone by March. They had promoted me by March to another club that was a higher potential, but it did require that I move. So I was top in the company for 2 months straight, and that's the slowest months of the year, November, December, for them anyway, for their patterns. That was their slowest. So top in with one other guy, and this other guy was like doing unbelievable numbers, which is blowing everybody away. It's like, how the hell is this guy doing that? You know, like $20,000+ a month and new PT and stuff like that. I would compete. I was second place to him, but I was first place both months. By the 15th, I was in first place. He just beat me by the end of the month. But I wasn't significantly far off. I was significantly ahead of my peers other than him. But that's just because I just focused on doing the job. So I took all of that. I went to Tallahassee. I changed one of the locations and made it the top producing club in the company. And then I started mentoring the second location there because they had two at the time. And I was going over and training and developing on my own time to make sure that location was doing well, because I didn't like to see anybody, especially people I like, so it's like struggling. So I went over for their director and I went over for their team to help develop them. And then I was promoted to district manager in 5 clubs back in the Tampa market. So I was brought back to the Tampa market. I had 5 clubs there. I got it in the end of February, beginning of March. So I left at the end of February, and my first day was officially March 1st. And I was there as a district manager until October of that year. So that is 7 months as a district manager. I got the district at 98,000. I finished, no, I'm sorry, 93,000. Within 7 months and 5 clubs, I finished, and I turned the district over to the next district manager. The company restructure. It was unfortunate timing for me. I turned over my 5 clubs to somebody who he had 4 clubs, but he was significantly under my numbers. Significantly, even if you took out one of my clubs, you're still well under. But he was more senior to me, so they knew him better than me. They figured he was a better bet. So I turned it over. I want to say the last month I had it was I turned it over officially October 1st. And that district was $182,000 a month from it was either 94 or 96. That is where I got it at. So I had nearly doubled what that was and fixed so many issues that were going on with these clubs in that timeline. But I also realized, look, I can do it 5 at the same time. I am gifted in this. I'm skilled in this. Not gifted, but I'm developed, and I have a significant degree of skills in this. I'm going to start officially consulting and move on. So that is what I'm doing now. That's where what I'm doing now came from. The third business was why I really ended up. So I left the personal training industry to do insurance for a year, but in the back of my mind, consulting had always been something that I wanted to do. But I was in the insurance industry for 1 year, and I'll tell you that is an industry that is not easy. There's a lot of cutthroat. There's a lot of misleading. There's a lot of lying. There's a huge ethical requirement that I hope to see they continue to tighten up. But anyway, so I did my time there. It was fascinating to go through it. I did gain more skills from being there. I learned a lot more about myself and the nature of health insurance in this country, and the business structures and how they work and things like that, because my mind always works on business structures. I'm very interested in that. So, and then after I finished that, I spent a very short period of time at Audi, working as a car salesman. Learned a lot about that industry, and I'll tell you, I would not give those 6 months back for anything that I worked in Audi. That 6 months it gave me so much insight into the industry. But that's how I work. Again, I'm always looking at how the business structures work and how the industries work. So, and then from there, since then, I completely nuts to bolts everything, got all kinds of stuff set up for my 4th company before I decided to finally just do the consulting. The 4th company was going to be a electric vehicles, charging systems, sales and installation. There's a lot to that. I went through the whole thing pro forma. I had it approved through the SCBA, Small Business Alliance, SBA, sorry. which you can get at the colleges. They most of them will have that, where you can get into a program and they can help mentor you and develop you. So I've spent time with somebody there. Great guy, did a phenomenal job. I learned so much. I learned how to do pro formas, business plans, strategies, aligning. It was just so much stuff, and I was ready for it. But the current administration that's in office now, as of 2020, I elected not to pursue that particular business because of some policy issues that I don't agree with, and I don't want to put a lot of time in to find out that that would actually end up becoming a detriment. It's not the decision I wanted to make, so I put that on ice. Practically, I buried it. I'm not really interested in going back to that concept or that particular business, although it is fully put together. Hell, I could sell it right now and probably make money on it. But anyway, so yeah, just not interested in pursuing that. So then I started my consulting. So directly consulting companies officially as of 2020 is when I started the company. But I have consulted 16 locations with 100% success, and turnaround. And it's all based off of the systems and things that I put into play. But the point of it is that that's the fourth business, and it's the first one that has actually been able to be filed as profitable. So it's a process. Never give up, man. The American dream is the middle class. The American dream is the business owners, and they come to this country and make a living for yourself and get a piece for yourself, get your own. And the thing that's at the top of the American dream is entrepreneurship. That's the top of the American dream. Now, you can work for companies and make a lot of money and make a great living and a good retirement and all of that, but there's something different about creating a business and making it profitable, making it work in this economy or whatever economy you're in. There's something big about that. So when I put in the title of this, why failing forward is better than winning big. Well, when you win big, you come right out of the gates and your first move is success. You get, whatever, you can make a lot of money or whatever it is, and you see that your business immediately just blows up. You don't know how to recreate that in the event that that falls apart for something that, let's say the industry is no longer valid, and salient, and it's something that is now antiquated and is outdated, and something else has replaced it. Just think Blockbuster to Redbox, right? Or hell, Netflix to, the downfall of Redbox. Yeah, it's like, you've got how businesses can become, outdated. So you don't know if that's going to happen to the business that you personally, what you see right now is supposed to be successful. You just have in your mind, you see a track history of success. You don't know that it's going to be. You come right out of the gate, you have success. It starts to solidify certain aspects about yourself, being a business person, and all that, and not necessarily like you just were at the right place, the right time, and the wheel of luck or the wheel of fortune, if you will, but not the game show. But I look at luck as this: luck is a wheel that turns. Where you are in your preparation for being able to deal with the opportunities when they show up is your ability to see the opportunity showing up and taking action on it. So the wheel's turning and it will get to you. You're just waiting. So you may not get those opportunities right away, but if you're not developed enough whenever the opportunity comes around, you're not going to be able to make progress. You're going to see it as a missed opportunity. So it's come around. It will come back around. The thing for you to do and the goal you should have for yourself is to study why you missed that opportunity, not to make it wrong that you did. You're looking at the areas that you can improve upon so that the next time opportunity shows up, you're more equipped to deal with that. When you have the opportunity show up right out of the chute, it gives you a false expectation of future events because it is easy to think, well, hell, this is an easy thing. You're not prepared to deal with everything that's coming. It's not horrible to come out of the gate and be successful. That's fantastic. But most people will think that's all I need to do. Just keep doing this instead of continue to develop myself. So failing forward is constantly moving forward through your failures, but they're not really failures. They turn into lessons. You've redeveloped what that thing is instead of saying, hey, I suck at this. You no longer suck at this. You're now working on it. So that's the goal, is to constantly move out of that I suck at this into moving forward, failing forward, which is, I'm not quite as good as I need to be, but that's okay. I'm going to get better, and I'm doing it now. I'm not saying I'm going to do it next week, because procrastination is an easy weight to attach to yourself. So it sinks you so easily, and it affects so many other patterns and habits and things that you really do need to be successful. Um, so with that, that's what how I try to explain to people. Pursuing the American dream is entrepreneurship is a fantastic way to get there, and that is quite possibly the top of the top when it comes to the American dream, is that being an entrepreneur, successful entrepreneur. But you have to learn to fail forward. And if you get those wins, don't let that set into your mind that this is going to be easy. It's not necessarily hard. It's just work. I love to tell people the most productive and best that you can possibly be is to work harder, smarter. Don't just work smarter. You find that procrastination comes in those people's worlds, and most people do not continue to add to things to make progress, which I'll go over that more from the interviews as well as more from just regular videos. So, but this has been my path. So, as a consultant, and I still maintain the consultant, I have a business partner now. We have fully put this thing together. I mean, it is fantastic what we were able to create. Incredibly effective systems that work for gyms. And this is for any type of gym. I am writing a book specific about personal training departments and how to take people from being a paycheck employee and making them a career-oriented employee. Now, the difference between those two is a paycheck employee will leave you as soon as they find more money, or if the frustration of working for you is greater than their value of the money that you pay them. That's a paycheck-centric employee. They may show up on time, they may do what they're told to do, but there really isn't any extra mile to it, and they are likely to leave you as soon as opportunities show up. Maybe a location or something opens up closer to where they live and they want to drive as far. Or let's say a relationship falls apart at the particular club or company that they work at, and then they're like, okay, it's not worth it anyway. There's no real investment for the future with the company. It's just about the paycheck. Career-centric employees are the ones that, times are hard right now, but I know that I'm going to grow through this, and I'm growing with this company. I'm going to become successful with this company. And I am more successful now with this company than I would be if I were not in that career mindset. So those employees will go the extra mile. They do all kinds of things to make sure that you're successful. They see their role in your success because your success is tied with theirs. They're career-centric. The book is about making career-centric employees, but there's systems to get there. You don't just sit down and go, okay, I'm going to make this a career opportunity for you. You need to be able to back it up, show them that you have systems of support. Structures for fulfillment is another term for that. But it's how do you make sure they understand they have a good thing? Our industry, the United States now we're so far past the Rolex and the pension mindset. We don't have a lot of pensions left in this country, and there's not a lot of companies that have them. When you used to retire back, 6 or 7 decades ago, people would be given maybe less, 5, whatever, but it's a timeline well past now, where people would be given a Rolex watch, and they would have a pension for their time working with a company until they retired. It was a way the company would show that they actually cared, that you worked for them and that you existed and they appreciate what you've done for them. We don't have that anymore. I want to bring that back. And this is part of how I bring it back, is to create career opportunities for employees. My company will end up, as time goes on, creating pensions, and I plan to give Golden Rolexes as well whenever it's time for the person to retire. Instead of just jumping from job to job and making the money necessary to have the big house or whatever, or just to pay their bills, I want that person to have purpose in where I am. So I do create that with the consulting, but I can't maintain it because it's not my job to maintain unless I'm a consultant with equity. But if I'm just consulting, it's going to be up to the owner of the company that I'm contracted with to make that kind of reality. So it's not a guarantee that my systems do that. It's up to the owner if they want to create that. But I do create the career-centric. I don't just create paycheck. I won't create paycheck employees. I will create career employees. That's what I've done, and I've made a great degree of progress and a living out of it. So, but that all came because of all of the struggles and challenges that I've had. I've failed forward so often that I've had very few big wins. they've all been little wins, but they add up. So I wouldn't have my company where it is right now if it wasn't for for the couple of big wins and all of the failures that really brought me to this point. So, current company is the name of it is Brochures and Associates. I do have 3 associates now. Originally it was 2. So it is. I've got great people that are involved. We're all industry experts, but this is the path that I chose. It's an entrepreneurship. With this channel, my goal is to help illustrate other people's businesses and to give details about what it takes in order to be successful from their words in my interviews with them. And that's exactly what you'll see whenever we get into this. They'll talk about what kind of success they have, what industry they're in, where did they get started, the concepts and the idea that they had initially, they got the business off the ground, or at least got it from in their head into reality, and what was inspiring to them, what challenges they've dealt with, what kind of victories have they had, how many employees, what kind of management systems, and what they would ultimately do, what they would give as a suggestion or direction in how to get started or how to overcome what they're currently dealing with in the industry for any entrepreneurs that are trying to start that type of business or are currently running those types of businesses. That's my dedication. My dedication is to the American dream. So I want this for everyone. And I want to create that in my personal life, in my professional life as well. I have created that by putting businesses in front of each other and let them talk and work their way through, or to get somebody who wants to go in an industry, become mentored by an owner, quite a few different things. But I want to expand that to something a little bit more impactful, which is through these videos, and to help inspire people that are struggling currently or that may be struggling soon, so they know where their resources are and where they can go to get something. So, all right, that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you for sticking in and sticking with it, sticking in there and hanging on with it. So greatly appreciate it. Again, my name is Chad Everett Brochures. This is Top Tier Career Entrepreneurship, and this is the path that I've been on for the American dream. So until next time, please do share this video with the people in your life that you know that this can help, and or subscribe to this channel yourself, or whomever it is that's in your life that this can help. Also encourage them to subscribe. They will get there will be materials and things whenever I have an email list that I'll be providing at no cost, just something to help give a little something. And then later on, we'll create a subscription option as well that gives a little bit more mentorship and a little more direction than what you would get off of just watching the videos or the freebies. So with that, thank you so much for your time. Your attention is a resource, and I value that you spent it with me. And I hope to see you continue to spend that resource to help accumulate more other resources to help you with your business. So with that, again, have a great day. Actually, today's a special day. It's not necessarily a special day in the most rewarding sense. This is, so it's September 4th. My father passed on September 4th of 2006. So this is the anniversary of his passing. My father always wanted me to be an entrepreneur. There's things that he did. Even in his will, he intended for me to receive all of his lawn equipment, things like that, that were for him. It would be for me running my own business, because he always knew I was an entrepreneur. He just wasn't an entrepreneur himself, so he couldn't teach me it. But he knew that I would go that route. He knew that I was just equipped for it. So today is the day of his passing. He died the same day as Steve Irwin. Not from the same causes, though, but still. So it's a special day, and it's in honor of him. So still to this day, he is the smartest man I've ever met. And I've met a lot of people in academia. I've met a lot of very, very intelligent people. It's surprising that a man that is not degreed like all these others were as intelligent as he was. So I guess I got a lot of my curiosity from him. So anyway, all right. Well, that's it for today. Hope you guys are having a great holiday, and I look forward to the next video. All right. Until next time, enjoy. Oh, comment if you have anything to comment, by the way, or if there's an industry or a business owner you'd like to introduce me to do an interview with, by all means, comment, and I'll get to you one way or another. Okay. Hope you're having a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.